Hi, I'm Michael, KB9VBR, your host for Ham Radio Q&A with the KB9VBR Extra. I'm on a mission to inspire and educate the amateur radio community, so if this is your first time here, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Well, what I have in my hands is one of the oldest, still in use, KB9VBR J-Pole antennas. I started building these antennas back in 2001. Now, first just for my own use, but soon thereafter for friends and for sale online. After a couple of prototype builds, I had a model that I was happy with, and I brought it out to Field Day back almost 20 years ago as part of our club's APRS demonstration station. The antenna performed flawlessly, and another club member, his name is Al, liked the antenna and asked if he could purchase it. I obliged, and since that time, this antenna has been on the air at his home station ever since. Fast forward 20 years, and I get a call from Al. His antenna and the mast it was on had fallen. I told him to bring it on over, and I'd repair it for him. But before we do that, I thought I'd take a quick look at the antenna. Now, this one, made 20 years ago, is almost identical in size and in shape to the ones that I currently produce. Really, comparing them, the only difference is that this one, the old one turned brown, but the patina certainly doesn't affect the performance at all. If I put this antenna on a meter, it will have the same specs as the new one. But let's talk about the connector. I solder these connectors directly to the antenna. This provides a solid connection that will not corrode nor change in the SWR over time. But really, they aren't indestructible, and they can break off in certain circumstances, especially if they have to bear the weight of the coax on them. So if you have an antenna with a broken connector, here's how you can fix it. You're going to need the following tools. First off is a propane torch, and you're really going to need a propane torch for this job. A soldering iron will not get hot enough to adequately flow the solder. The copper acts like a heat sink, so a torch is in order. Next, you're going to need wire brush or steel wool to clean the surface. And finally, solder and flux. Now, you're going to want to use a rosin core solder. Acid solder will degrade the connection over time. But remember, I use a lead-free silver-bearing solder for the connections. This makes a very strong connection, but again, it has a higher melting point, so more heat will be necessary. To reattach the connection, you'll first need to prep the surface. Clean the surface with the wire brush or the steel wool. If there's a lot of solder on the surface, you can heat it up with and wipe the old solder off. Next, measure and make a mark 1 3/4 inches from the center of the T connector to the edge where the connector will go. Then, apply the flux liberally to the surface and the edge of the connector. Heat up the spot where the connector will go. Preheating the spot will allow you to work quickly without overheating the connector itself. Put down a new pad of solder. New solder flows a lot better than old. Now, the key to soldering these connectors is a hot torch and working fast. Set the connector on the pad of solder and then tack down the wire on the other side. Next, heat under the connector and apply a bit of solder. When the solder starts to flow, I like to give it another wipe of flux. I then apply more heat and add more solder to the back side. Now, don't forget to finish soldering the wire side of the connection. As the connector cools, look for cracks or bubbles. If you see any, you may need to reheat until they disappear. Once you're done, wipe it down with a wet cloth. And that's it. Your antenna is now once again ready for years and years of service. Well, for more articles and information, be sure to check out my blog at www.jpole-antenna.com. And thanks for watching this KB9VBR Antennas Extra. I'm Michael, KB9VBR. Have a great day, and 73.